Research and organization-wide rollout across product. She has driven the test automation initiative at NimbleWork. She cherishes training and mentoring teams to achieve transformation from manual testing to agile testing, test automation to continuous testing, and bringing in technology come process cultural change. Her topic would be information pyramid in BBD. I hand over to Ashwini. Sorry, BDD.
Thanks so much, Vidhi. Hello all, good afternoon. There has to be energy after the lunch. And I'm sure it's a challenging thing to come and speak after the lunch, but let's see. Let's make it enjoyable. So, how many of you had the lovely baked rasgullas, gulab jamuns? Wonderful, right? So, I think the host definitely deserves a round of applause. Let's give them a round of applause. Great. Thank you so much. There's no AI in my talk. It's all basics. So if you feel not aligned to it, I don't mind. You guys can walk in, walk out, attend multiple sessions at the same time, get best use of all the sessions together, absolutely fine. Okay? And now that I know I'm talking to whoever I'm talking and a thrilling audience, let's just get started. So BDD, we started with BDD some years back, behavior-driven development. And then we thought, let's read about it. What is it about? Some given when-then scenarios. So we just started writing given when-then scenarios. Then we delved a little deeper, and we thought it needs to be done collaboratively. So we started doing it collaboratively, the developer, the tester, the product owner. And then what we ended up with is a test automation inventory that reported in English-like language. And they say that these reports are readable to all the stakeholders. But unfortunately, these test reports were not readable to even the testers who wrote it. So, missing the purpose of why behavior-driven development was done. And then started the journey of learning through the hardships and then really understanding the philosophy behind how BDD needs to be practiced. And what dawned on us is BDD is so much to do with bringing in business agility. It's so much to do with agile approach, and it helps software development remain aligned with the larger business outcome. And that's what we are going to see. Let's begin with a story. It says it's simpler to correlate one's life when we go through a story. Meet Deepesh, Tushar, and Prashant. Deepesh is a brilliant developer who can create great architectures, great product. Tushar is a curious tester. Tell me top 2 qualities of tester. Anyone? Problem solving? Never say die attitude. Great. So exactly, Tushar had that eye for detail, eye for perfection. And he understood, he acted as facilitator and really drove the project. Prashant was a visionary behind the project. He had that knack of studying market trends and ensuring that the requirements and the user needs are well articulated. And the trio felt that when 3 of the diverse skills, when they brought together, they could really deliver extraordinary softwares. Meet Chandan. Chandan is an ambitious entrepreneur. He had already established his name in the financial domain. He had already taken a platform the financial transaction platform for businesses and individuals online, and it was groundbreaking. However, there were few transactions and few disputes that still remained offline. So the customers had to actually go through an offline process when it came to dispute management system. So he thought that let's do something about it. That concern always remained in his mind. So one fine day, when he got into a conference like this, how many of you have connected to somebody different who is not from your organization? Have you networked across? How many of you? Can you tell me 2 people, 3 people, how many people you know who are not from your organization? Great. So Chandan happened to meet Deepesh, Tushar, and Prashant, and they thought they follow a common passion for innovation. So Chandan thought of connecting to the organization and taking forth his idea that I have this concern. My customers are not satisfied. He came up with a beautiful presentation, and he said that I need this fast and fair dispute redressal system. The leadership team thought of a win-win opportunity. The core platform was already in place. They wanted to augment one additional system, and they thought that let's connect with them, get this flashy website done so the customer engagement goes to the next level, and they started interpreting what Chandan needed. Work started in full swing. There was a solid teamwork. Everyone enthused about this new project, and obviously our trio, Deepesh, Tushar, and Prashant, were part of it. What ended up happening, eventually, there was backslash in the functionality. A lot of importance was given to the flashy website, to the aesthetic parts of it, and the functionality started taking the backstage. The trio felt that their expertise is underutilized. The tension increased, the conversation strained, timeline started shifting. They started putting a lot of heavy effort, but yet each one had that dissatisfaction. The website went live. On the first pass, Chandan was very happy. It had a great UI, it had great functionality on the first superficial functionality that he saw, and he felt, wow, it has really come out well. But over a period of time, when he started taking track of whether the dispute redressal has truly become online, whether there's a lot of emphasis on the offline process, has that been reduced, he didn't really get that customer satisfaction metric. So he thought of approaching back to the organization, and he explained to them his frustration. The vision with which he had actually started, there seems to be some disconnect. The CEO, the leadership team was like stalled. They said, guys, we've put best of the effort, diligent effort, burning the midnight oil. And how come, and it all started with the understanding that we had from you, right? Then how come did it not satisfy your customers? The functionality had taken a backstage. He needed a fast and fair defect redressal system, whereas the customers were confused. They thought that there's partly information which is fed in the UI, and the same information needs to be given offline as well. Where do they go ahead in the process? And that's where the frustration built. It was like a corporate telephony. You pass on the information like a whisper, remember? And then there's some words lost in translation. Have you come across a situation like this? Okay, let's do this exercise. You get 30 seconds, turn to the person next to you, and describe top 2 challenges, what happened here in this story. Doable? You get 30 seconds, your 30 seconds starts now. The good part of not having the stage is I can really come closer to the audience and really understand their sentiment. All right. Yes, top 2 challenges.
So they are not connecting together and
They are not connecting to?
reviewing the problem whether it's resolved like that.
They're not reviewing the problems in the business. Anyone else here? What is missing here? What are top 2 challenges that you see? They are confused, not clear understanding of user needs. Documentation was not there. Absolutely. Let's correlate this to the psychology of thinking. Chandan walked in with certain concerns. The end user concerns, right? The customers were not able to resolve the dispute, so one part remained offline. He wanted to create a positive influence on his customers. Then comes the part where he wanted to place the control in the hands of his customers that go ahead and resolve your problems online without any additional help. That's where comes the software part of it. That's what we build, right? If you draw a parallel to this, in our daily life also, we have these circle of concern, circle of influence, and circle of control. We get a sense of happiness and fulfillment when we have things under our control. And there are so many times there are things which are under our control and some are simply not, right? I'm speaking here, standing in front of you. I'm preparing for this presentation. These are things under my control. There are still larger set of concerns that still exist. The audience may have background of BDD, may not have background of BDD. There can be technical glitches. There can be network outages. There's so many concerns around there. What I can best do is focus on things under my control and create this positive influence to the best extent possible. Isn't it something similar when you do for a job interview? You focus on your core strength, prepare for it, and try to increase that circle of control into circle of influence. Now let's look at these 3 areas and the boundaries that separate these 3 areas from the perspective of the delivery team or an execution team. They deal with user stories. Users' stories exist to explain the problem statements. Users' need of a story is to describe what are their pain points. But many a times we come across user stories like, I need a 3-step wizard for user registration page, right? I need a red color icon on the card button or card view. Why? What is the business? Is it on? What is the business intention behind technical glitches I said about area of concern? What is the business intention behind those stories? So if the business intention is not clear, the delivery team only gets a myopic view of what needs to be built, missing the business purpose. It does satisfy the workflow, but the business intention might be lost. And that's what BDD gives us. My name is Ashwini Lalit. I cherish training teams for continuous testing, continuous improvement, BDD practice. I work for NimbleWork, which is primarily into adaptive project management, work management. What we'll do is we'll quickly touch upon how BDD simplifies, helps us getting over these challenges that we just discussed. And Oopsie kind of simplifies the way BDD can be practiced. Then we'll delve deeper into how the information travels right from the beginning when it's just a mere idea, just a mere concern, and then it takes the shape further till we get software developed. And finally, we'll look at why there is a set of information layering which is needed, just the minimum piece of information that we need so that each team member participating in this journey can really do justice to the discussion that is needed when we follow BDD. So let's begin with what is BDD? BDD is about finding requirements, detailed requirement, with the help of structured conversations. It's about translating those ideas which the strategic team have decided further and now handed it over to the execution teams. Now, this translation of information gets simplified if it is done through real-world examples, through some concrete examples. So it's actually a three-step process. It begins with the discovery part, where you look at concrete examples. Once you know and understand the business part of it, that is when you delve deeper. And then you start formulating it as scenarios. Then comes the automation part of it, which is incidental. Unfortunately, to the extent that I've worked with certain teams, they know that BDD is to write Gherkin scenarios and then automate those scenarios. And it completely misses out the purpose of the kind of collaboration which was needed. So we'll dig deeper into this. Now, what is OOPSI and how does it help practice BDD? How does it simplify practicing BDD? OOPSI is very much ingrained into BDD. OOPSI mandates discovery of certain deliverables. And when you discover those deliverables, automatically you get into conversations which are needed to correctly understand the business. It's like finding the highest value outcome, then which are the outputs which will help me achieve those highest value outcome at the business level. Outputs are something that human beings can touch and feel and understand, yes, this is what I need to develop, right? So what are those outputs which will help me achieve the business outcome? Once you know what are the outputs, you want to find the processes that actually help achieve the output. I think the projector is too much white. The contrast has to be improved because the color coding is not seen. Once you know the process part of it, what you want to delve deeper is to find out what are the scenarios for each of those steps. And then the real-world data, when you culminate that real-world data with the scenarios, you tend to find the right processes which will help you achieve those output. The real-world data. We as testers tend to work with real-world data only during the acceptance testing, which comes right towards the far end. And that's the reason that waterfallish approach always gave us a lot of defects. By following OOPSI, you tend to discuss that real-world data right in the beginning. And hence, it's like a left shift of quality. Let's take an example. So let's say I want to withdraw cash from bank so that I avoid standing in line. So what do you think are the outputs? This is a user story. I want to withdraw cash. Very simple. There's nothing right or wrong about it. What is the output? Cash. Another name for it? Money? Notes? Denomination? Notes of some denomination? What else? Transaction statement? What else? Less time spent is not an output. Output, tangible output. Receipt, bank balance, correct? These are all different types of outputs. Now, when these outputs are put down, we want to find out processes that will help me achieve these outputs. And for every output, we want to find what process will take me to that output. So for a successful outcome where I get the cash in my hand, what is the process? The process may be authentication, putting the amount, and then taking the cash. Right? Now, for each of these steps, I want to find out scenarios that will help me complete this process. So it can be there's enough bank balance that I can get the output. There may be less amount, so I'm going to get an error. What else? One such scenario is there are no funds in the ATM machine itself if I'm transacting through an ATM. Do you think there's any other scenario? Authentication failed, correct? Glitches. How about daily limits? The moment you start taking so many things in a single user story, you're obviously going to say, this is a very big story. You're trying to handle too many different objectives that are not aligning with a success output. You're discussing about success output, and then you're finding out scenarios. Then you're discussing unsuccessful output, you're finding out the scenarios. That's how you break down the story. We are always dealing with constraints of bandwidth, timeline, correct? And if the user stories are not carved out well, what will end up happening is you're going to miss out on important scenarios. These are like sleeping dragons that needs to be discussed early in the cycle. Then comes the part where you culminate it with real-world data, right? So this is what oopsie is. Now let's quickly say Gherkin is incidental, so I'm not really going to talk about it. We write scenarios, but scenarios have to be written if you deliberate discovery properly. The importance is discovery process and really collaborating well on the kind of information that needs to be handled here as part of the process. Now, having understood what BDD is and oopsie, how it simplifies BDD, let's look at how information travels right from the stage. Remember, Chandan walked into leadership team and he said, my customers are facing a problem. So that initial information handling is done within a process that can be coined as impact mapping. This is generally the strategic team that participates into these discussions, and they try to find out what are those pain points. So the business goals are truly the business pain points. These are not solutions. Absence of customer satisfaction is a business pain point. Impacts are truly speaking what are change in the lives of the users that we want to bring in. These are not product features. So we are truly talking in terms of business. So we discover goals, impact, deliverables. Then comes the part where the business analyst team takes over this information from the strategic team and starts finding usage scenarios. What are various usage scenarios that will happen within the deliverable which is discovered? Like if I have to build a mobile app as a deliverable, what are various flows in the mobile app that we need to cater to? And then there's a prioritization in terms of an MVP that can be established during story mapping. The next part comes wherein the execution team now takes one story at a time and then puts down examples for each of the stories in terms of culminating it with real-world data. So this is a three-step process. So what's important, there's a lot of information over there, the business information, the UI information, the code, so many things, so many team members, right from the beginning to strategic team, execution, everyone is participating into it. But if everybody does everything, there's going to be confusion. Goko Edzik, a great person, and it's not seen actually over here, but there's a very nice book written by Goko, 50 Quick Ideas on User Story Mapping. And what he explains is that when there's too much of information, one will tend to lose the focus. In the initial discussions, which is truly speaking where you're trying to find what are the problems to be solved, those problems are stated as business goals. Then comes the part where you discover what are the kind of changes that will bring in the life of customers. So if we take an example that I want to improve on peak sales. Peak sales is a good business goal to have. And this business goal Once decided, we can measure what is the sale today and what is the percentage improvement I anticipate over a year's time if I build this software. So let's say I'm going to work on mobile revenue. It's a good business goal to have. Build a mobile app. No. Integrate ChatGPT. What is the use case? Will it give me the relevant revenue? Do we know the relevant use cases? We haven't discussed anything. All we are saying is build a mobile app. That's not going to solve the problem. So first is put down the goal, then the impacts that we want to achieve, which is like, let's say, mobile revenue. Then you start saying, okay, if I have to build mobile app as a deliverable, what are those key workflows that I would like to cater to? So if at all a good hierarchy is chalked out of this, then all I need to worry about is a subset of functionality that can immediately deliver me results. And if at all business wants to change the direction and they want to start with other business goal, the entire team, the business analyst team, the execution team, all are informed that that was the business goal we tried achieving as an organization. It doesn't give results. We are changing the direction, picking up other business goal. But it is essential that each one is aware in terms of what they are building, for what purpose. And you can very easily apply OOPSI for understanding how you convert that impact map into a story map. BDD can be practiced at the upstream level, where you select one impact at a time, understand various usage patterns, like mobile app and its usage scenarios. At that level, you are only trying to find what are the stories. You're not writing test cases. You're just generating a story map. That's where you can apply OOPSI. Then, when you hand over the story map to the execution team, the developer, the tester, the product owner, that's where they take it up and they start working on developing the software, the sphere of control. The sphere of influence is where you try to find the radius of the circle that you're trying to deliver as an organization. Once it is established, the development team, the engineering team can only go to the extent of what influence which has already been thought through. They cannot deliver anything extraordinary if the influence itself was missing. Right? So let's help our friend. Now we know about BDD, how we apply OOPSI. We know the 3 important processes. So let's start the same story again. And now let's say we go ahead and implement OOPSI for Mr. Chandan. Right? He came up with a problem statement. Customer satisfaction was a problem. So the next thing to identify are what are the actors for this particular business goal. Just coining it as customer is enough. It was a financial transaction platform, right? Customers can be investors, auditors, individual customers, companies. One needs to identify the personas. Then comes one of the important impact that he wishes to create. He wanted an impact in terms of ease of case creation, dispute redressal, right? So ease of case creation is the outcome he wants to chase. And how he can achieve it in terms of deliverable is case management system. Do you think there are other things that can be done to improve customer satisfaction? Ease of creation is just one impact that they discovered. At the business level, do you see there are other things that can be done to improve customer satisfaction?
Yeah. Product quality.
Product quality, that's a general across anything. For this particular problem, Mr. Chandan, you missed the story at the start. So Mr. Chandan was facing a problem where he had the dispute redressal entirely offline. And he wanted to improve customer satisfaction in that context. Anyone? Any other thing that can be done to improve customer satisfaction? Loudly, little louder. Feedback mechanism, proactive notifications, reward program, there are multiple impacts that can be created at the business level that can help customer satisfaction. So we can ask Mr. Chandan what you would like to do first. I have a limited bandwidth, limited capacity, limited resources. As part of first MVP, which impact do you want to chase? And then rest of the things can be wish list and can be taken further. Let's go ahead with building the case management system. So the trio meet. Anyways, they were all brilliant people. They start discussing the case management system. So now we apply OOPSI, right? OOPSI is about finding the highest value outcome, then the output. We have finalized the output. What comes next? Processes. How many processes are there in a case management system? There can be multiple. Most of you may be aware of ticketing system, case management system. There's so many things. What are outstanding cases? Do I get a notification when the case gets closed? And we are not discussing any designs, VD, UI, or anything. We are talking at the business level, what are my core flows? We asked Mr. Chandan, which are the ones that you want to cater to first? Which is the most critical one that we can immediately put to production? And then we dig deeper to find scenarios and inputs. The OOPSI part, scenarios and input after processes. This time, the scenarios that I write are for discovering stories. This is the upstream part of the conversation, converting the impact map into story map. Once this is finalized, then we go downstream to develop those user stories. The importance here is everything is aligned to the common outcome that has been discussed at the business level. So the next piece, the team gets together, they start taking up stories. Let's say they pick up this one story of create case and then upload documents. Okay? We apply OOPSI now during the development cycle. This is the execution time. In the execution time, the story outcome is upload document for a case. Simple enough, right? We upload document on a job portal, we upload document in a case management system, multiple other areas we would have worked around this particular feature. So how do we apply OOPSI? Output here is uploaded files. Then comes the part where we find out processes. Now this is core. For a dispute system, it can be, I can view a case detail and still upload. I can do it at the creation time. I can do it when I'm notified that it's still not dealt with. And hence, it becomes important how I give it a case management system perspective, and that needs to be discussed with the product owner. Once it is finalized, then I put an example map for it. In the example map, now we go ahead to set up the rules part of it. If I upload a single file, what happens? If I upload multiple files together, and there can be multiple different rules that I might wish to build in the system. Or some rules I can say, no, it doesn't look like our customers will use in this manner. We can take the risk and ignore it in first MVP. This is what you establish as a specification. This specification goes further in the hands of developers and the testers at the same time. Have we written given when then scenarios till now? Not really. We have simply collaborated. Now comes the part where you give shape to the conversation that we have just had. Rules that you have established becomes the scenario name. The process and the workflows and the examples that you have discussed become the scenario. And then comes the technical activity, which is very much that you play back on the browser. But many a times, I see people writing scenarios as a click event stream on the browsers. That's not what it is. You're putting down a spec file, which is like a soul, which is like functionality that needs to be built. And then that soul can have multiple manifestations. What you have built as a normal browser desktop feature, you want to take it to mobile app as well. So do you think that you write a different rule engine for it? It's just the manifestation of same functionality. Even the developers don't write it, right? The backend remains the same. All you develop is just the mobile UI. right? That's the reason your feature file has to be written once, and it describes the functionality. Then comes the part where you do automation. OK, just one out. The automation part of it, the moment you have established this kind of specification, what you do is you've actually set up a business vocabulary. This business vocabulary helps us translate and decide on the API structures, the interfaces, and everybody talks the same business terminology, and this is what you establish as a domain-specific language. It's true for the development team as well as for the automation team. Automation team can actually start developing business keywords. They can dump all the business objects in one flat file and still go ahead automating their step definitions. They don't have to worry about capturing expats because the application doesn't exist. You're still developing the flat feature files. And that's how you can really achieve in-sprint automation. Having established that, we come to the end where we say, you layer the information, avoid the depth-first approach. The strategic team, generally I see companies dig deeper to define the UI first, without really focusing on the business aspect of it. What you follow, BDD in the upstream, where you refrain from going solution finding or application-specific details. Then you apply BDD in the downstream. And this will basically be discovery, formulation, and the practice which will help us understand how the business alignment remains throughout the process, and each one is able to really limit the information which is needed that they need to discuss. So with that, here are a few of the references that you can dig deeper and find out about OOPSI and how upstream and downstream BDD can be practiced. Just to summarize, what we've understood is there's an upstream process. It needs focus and attention on the business discovery. It can be very well practiced using OOPSI. For the execution team, it's essential to establish what are the rules within the context of the user story. What is the purpose of the user story? And that can be very well established using OOPSI. And if you limit and layer this information in terms of small little information that I need at any point in time as a pyramid, you will always have that business alignment, much needed business alignment throughout the assets that needs to be built as part of the software. With that, I come to the end of this session. I hope it's helpful. Thanks for listening me patiently.
Thank you so much.